I'd like to welcome you to Coeur d'Alene Education Partnership's first candidate forum for the Coeur d'Alene School District 271 Board Trustee candidates. If you'd please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're looking forward to hearing from the candidates and learning why they're interested in serving on Coeur d'Alene School District School Board. The Coeur d'Alene Education Partnership is an independent, nonprofit partnership driven by the belief that every student in our district deserves a public education of the highest quality. We work to unite individuals, businesses, and organizations in support of excellence in public education. We work to keep the community informed about educational developments and to advocate on a local and state level for superior public schools. CEP envisions a school district that is a state and national model for excellence. Students of all ability levels will receive the tools necessary to maximize their potential in college, career, and other post-secondary opportunities. Programs will succeed in developing the whole child as a lifelong learner, and students will become citizens who productively contribute to the nation and to the world. Educators will be drawn to the district for a superior work environment that nurtures their talents and their contributions. The district will be a flagship in the community that spurs both economic growth and development. CEP launched our volunteer program, VIP, Volunteers in Play, in September. We partnered with the Coeur Group to pilot the program at Bora Elementary. Volunteers spent their lunch hours playing with students on the playground. The Coeur Group demonstrated sportsmanship, conflict resolution, and taught the students new games. The result has been absolutely amazing. Decreased conflicts at recess, the students' confidence has been boosted, and recess play is both fun and constructive. We continue to grow our VIP program and have volunteers currently at Sorensen, Canfield, and Bryan. The volunteers and CEP strive to encourage students to pursue secondary education opportunities, to meet with school administrators, to identify needs that can be met by community and by the volunteers, and to partner with local businesses and civic organizations to provide volunteers. We work to ensure a sustainable commitment by the community to enhance the quality of public education, to provide professional expertise found in the community, to act as mentors to encourage students to think beyond high school. And we help families navigate that difficult process of college applications, financial aid services, and scholarship opportunities. CEP is very proud of our first State of the District event that was held in January in this very room. School District 271's administration was available to answer questions and provide updates. It was standing room only, and the community had a unique opportunity to engage with district administration. 4 topics were covered that evening. School safety, at the time the upcoming maintenance and operations levy, and updates on Sorensen and Canfield construction, as well as Idaho's Common Core standards. We look forward to hosting many more events that provide the community an opportunity to engage with our administration and learn about important educational issues. Please stop by CEP's membership table before leaving tonight. You can sign up for a CEP membership and learn about the opportunities to become involved. CEP also has absentee ballot request forms available at the table in the back of the room. We'd like to extend a couple of extra special thank yous tonight. The first is to Java for providing the refreshments for us, as well as Bunkhouse Media for production and taping of tonight's forum, the Coeur d'Alene Library for the use of this community room, and Channel 19 for the generous airtime. Tonight's forum is an opportunity to get to know the candidates and review the current school district zone maps. Zone maps are posted at the back of the room and on our website, cdaep.org. The audience at home will see the zone maps appear before the candidates are introduced. Please make sure to double-check your zone boundaries. Many have changed slightly since the last election. Thank you to the Coeur Group for moderating tonight's event. The Coeur Group has complete discretion over the questions asked of each candidate. The questions are known only by select members of the Coeur Group and have been kept confidential. Question suggestions were accepted from the community through email over the past several weeks. The format will be similar to a debate with questions asked of each candidate, with a timed response. The goal is to provide opportunities for fluid conversation and for each candidate to connect with the community. Each candidate will be given time for an opening and closing statement. Formal written invitations were sent to all the trustee candidates at their mailing addresses that were on file with the Kootenai County Elections Office. Both the Coeur d'Alene Education Partnership and the Coeur Group do not take positions in local political issues or endorse candidates. But both are engaged in the community and passionate about being informed. Joining us for the Coeur Group tonight is Peter Smith, Ben Miller, and James Noel. Welcome and thank you to the candidates here tonight. The zones we'll be hearing from are zones 1, 4, and 5. We'll begin with zone 5. Again, I'd like to stress the importance of checking your zone boundaries. After we hear from the candidates in zone 5, we'll continue on to zone 4 and then zone 1. Please help me thank and welcome the Coeur Group.
Moderator of tonight's event, and sitting to my left is Ben Miller, one of the questionnaires who will be asking questions this evening, and to my right is James Noel. The format tonight, I'm going to go over the rules while the candidates are all in the room with us. First, each candidate will be given a 1-minute opening statement. And though all the candidates were invited to be here tonight, 2 of them could not make it. One of them has submitted a written statement that will be read off stage, but everyone will be able to hear it. During the question and answer period, the answers will be limited to 1 minute, and I'm going to use my discretion on the timing. With one candidate on the stage, I may allow an answer to go a little bit longer, and the same goes when there's 2 candidates on the stage. I may allow time to go a little bit longer. The candidates will know the timing by our timekeeper who is off stage. The questions, as were previously suggested, were prepared entirely by us, the Coeur Group, and a select group of us within the Coeur Group. No one has helped us with these questions. Nobody has screened these questions. I hope that tonight will be a fluid discussion between all the candidates and the panelists and is a very good education opportunity for everybody here. With that being said, I would like to ask the candidates who are in the room that are not up at this point, that would be the candidates from Zone 1 and Zone 4, to please exit to the green room so that they are sequestered during the first round of questioning. And I would ask that Mr. Hearn please take the stage. Mr. Handine was unable to make it this evening. Mr. Hearn, you have an opportunity to make an opening statement. Please limit the opening statement to 1 minute. The stage is yours.
Okay. Well, first I'd like to thank you, the Education Partnership, and the Coeur Group for sponsoring this debate. I appreciate you having this. These are important, I think, for this community and for all of us. I'd like to briefly explain my background, and we'll get into why I'm running later. I'm sure it'll be one of the questions. I'm a 32-year resident of Coeur d'Alene. My wife, Kathy, is retired Post Falls teacher. We have 2 children that went to Lake City or graduated from Lake City High School. I feel like I have a strong commitment to public education. I also feel like I have a background both professionally in boards I've been on and in my business experience to be of benefit to the school board. As far as my board experience, I have been appointed to 2 state boards by 3 different governors. I've also been appointed to 2 state task forces by attorney generals. I've been in those are listed on my website, but basically they both been Republican and Democratic governors. I've also been involved in a lot of statewide and local activities. On the statewide level, I was one of the founding members. I was 2-term president of the Idaho Network for Children that existed throughout the 1980s and into the early 90s. Locally, I was involved in the Friends of Head Start, Children's Village Board of Directors in the early days. I'm on the Long Range Planning Committee, Kootenai County Child Abuse Task Force in the 90s, Lewis and Clark State College Advisory Board. And business-wise, I have also owned and operated as two small businesses in this community. I was part owner of Interfaith Family Counseling Services, which is a private mental health clinic, and I was also, I'm also owner of North Idaho Treatment Associates. I assume that red means that I've gone my 1 minute, right? Okay.
It is. We're going to start the questioning now, and I'm sure you'll be
Okay.
able to get into more details.
All right.
We're going to start with Mr. Miller.
Mr. Hearn, why are you qualified for the position of trustee?
Well, as I was speaking to, and I'll speak more about it, I think certainly my background, both in business and in boards I've been on, and in my strong commitment to the welfare of children and to strong public education, I think qualifies me. Again, I've been on various boards on a statewide level and locally. I have a lot of board experience. I've chaired boards. I've testified in front of the legislature. I've given lots of professional workshops and conferences, spoken in front of groups like I did a workshop at one point for the Idaho Supreme Court. I've done lots of professional speaking. I feel like I have that kind of background. Business-wise, I think I have a good sense of what it takes to run a business. I have successfully run a business since 1986 is when I first started a business, and I still own a business in Coeur d'Alene. As far as my commitment to children, I've worked, for 35 years I've worked with children, either directly with them through work I did when I worked for the state at one point. I worked for Child Protective Services and dealt with some pretty high conflict situations. Since 1986, I've been in the private sector in a private mental health clinic. And in that setting, I worked with children, I worked with families, and I've also worked with people who abuse children. And that's a tough group of people to work with. But my commitment to the safety and welfare of children extends to dealing with the people that hurt children. I think if we're really concerned about that, about the welfare of children, we have to be concerned also about people that mistreat them. So I've done that for 35 years, and I feel like I can handle the responsibilities of a board member and have the background to do that.
You alluded we might ask this, but why are you running?
Well, I'm running, I think, again, I think I'm running because I think I have the background to be a benefit to the district. I have lots of goals. One of the goals I would hope if I'm on the board is to improve the communication between the board and the community, the board and its educators. I am running because it's something that I think I can give back to the community. I've been in this community for 32 years. My children benefited from the schools. I have a brother who's a retired superintendent of schools. I have a strong commitment to public education. I'm at the point in my life also, I'm close to retirement, that I think I can dedicate the time to this now, if elected. I think that I have the right kind of values, the right kind of background, and I feel like this is something that I can give back to the community.
Mr. Hearn, do you believe our schools are safe, and do you have specific proposals to make them safer?
Well, that's a good question. I do know that the most recent levy that was passed had, I think, was a $1.6 million enhancement to safety in the schools, and they were going to do things like control access to the schools, make it so there's locks inside of the doors so teachers can lock out people if there's problems out there. They are putting security cameras throughout the schools. They are putting there's going to be coordination between the police department and the cameras within the schools, so when the police officers drive up, they can tap into the cameras and see what's going on inside. So all those things, I support all of those things. So, is there safety in the schools? You're never going to, the schools are not prisons. I mean, we're never going to have that kind of level of security, but we need to do everything we can to protect our children. I mean, if there's nothing else we do, that's got to be important. I've spent my life trying to protect children and working in the abuse field. But in terms of the tragedies we've seen happen in schools, like what happened in Connecticut, I mean, it just broke all of our hearts. And so certainly the schools hopefully are getting safer with some of the enhancements that they're talking about. Are they safe now? Well, not as much as they will be, hopefully, after some of these improvements take place.
According to cdaschools.org, the 2012-13 district budget is roughly $80 million. There are approximately 10,000 students. That is approximately $8,000 per student each year. Is more money needed to effectively educate our children?
Well, I think in looking at your question there, we also ought to look at the funding levels. Idaho is fairly well known to have some of the lowest funding, if not the lowest funding, per students in the country. That's a concern to me. Our current budget, the 2013 budget, is less than it was in 2009. And there's been significant cutbacks in the schools, is well known, over the last 4 years. What's happened is the legislature has not adequately funded the schools, in my judgment, so more burden has been put on the local taxpayers, and therefore, which means passing levies, and those levies have, the percentage of the budget has increased every year. They've done that, and so now it's up to 21% or so. And I think that those, it's unfortunate, in my opinion, that the legislature is not adequately funding schools, but that puts more of a burden on the local taxpayers. And I would like to see that increase. I think it's time for us to start saying, are we committed to our schools? Are we going to fund them? Are we going to do the best we can for them? Now, I know education is not all about money, but money is pretty important. When you're cutting staff, I was talking to I've been walking neighborhoods lately. I keep looking over at this gentleman with this. I've been walking neighborhoods lately, and I ran into a person who works in the. It was a person who works in the library, and the person I'm sure doesn't want me to identify them, so I won't. But they worked in the library, and they were embarrassed about the age of the books in their library. Some of them were 20, 30 years old. They had no budget to get new books. So I don't think we are making the commitment to our children. I don't think we are funding them well. And I don't like what's happening in Boise, and I think the local levy, and I've been criticized about this, but I'm not going to back down on this. I think the local levy that was set too low. They knew going into this levy that there was going to be additional cuts. Now, I own property in the community. I own commercial property. I own 2 pieces of residential property. I don't like property taxes more than anybody else. It's not who likes to pay property taxes. I don't like to write those checks. On the other hand, I also think we need to have a strong commitment to schools, and part of that means paying for that on the state level and the local level. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but I feel strongly that we need to, we show our commitment by how we're willing to spend our energy, how we're willing to spend our lives, how we're willing to spend our money.
Mr. Hearn, you mentioned that you believe that funding should be increased from the state level and perhaps even from the local level for the schools. But assuming that can't take place for political reasons or the budget just simply doesn't support it, are there areas within the school district budget that you see that could be reallocated to provide other services that maybe make our dollars stretch a little further?
Well, that's another good question. Well, I am not seeing, from my looking at the budget, I'm not seeing that there's a lot of fat in the Coeur d'Alene School District budget. I mean, people may think there is. I don't see it. Now, it's up to the trustees, of course, to allocate the money appropriately, responsibly. There's only so much there, and so much goes to programs and facilities and to the employees. Now, how that can be reallocated, I mean, I know that they're looking at cost cutting in various areas. Some of there's going to be some there is ongoing negotiations now with the teachers, and I don't know where that will lead, and I think it's inappropriate for me to say if there's going to be cuts there, what kind of cuts there's going to be. You hear little things like, I remember attending a board meeting some time ago, I think, or maybe it had been a workshop, but basically there was a statement that and this is not a big expenditure, but it just shows that there's probably areas where they could improve things. There was a statement made that each of the individual schools had independent contracts with companies for doing copying, their copy machines, right? And my thought was, and I think this wasn't just my thought, why isn't there a district-wide contract with copy companies or whatever you want to call them. And that would, to me, that would save money rather than have each school negotiate with those kinds of issues. So there's some things like they can do that. But I trust our administration to look at that, and our board certainly is responsible ultimately to take a look at those issues.
Just to follow up to that, where is the biggest bang for a buck in the public education system?
Biggest bang for the buck? Well, I think high-quality teachers. I mean, I think any study that you look at and look at your own personal experience. I look at my own personal experience. When I was growing up back in the Stone Ages, I had some really good teachers and some really bad teachers. And I'll tell you, most of them were really good, thankfully. I went to a good school district, but I had some bad teachers. And, and it made all the difference in terms of what kind of a year I had, what kind of things I learned. And I think that's true now. I think we need to be supporting our educational professionals to be the best they can be. So I think that we need to have high-quality teachers. We need to have a school district that attracts high-quality teachers and wants not only to attract them, but wants to retain them. You hear, when I've been talking to teachers, many of them are very frustrated, depressed, or looking for jobs elsewhere. They're very concerned about, does the school board have their back, and are they being supported by the board? So, say bang for the buck. Well, I think it is in putting it in high quality teachers, supporting them, giving them the kind of support. And if there's bad teachers, then I trust the administration, working with the principal and the administrators will try to help those teachers become better, or figure out what they're going to do with them. But I think that that's where we need to be putting our energy. Okay.
If we continue in that vein, how do you suggest that we attract and we keep high-quality teachers?
Well, first, I think it comes from respecting them. I think the teachers in Idaho, many of them feel a huge lack of respect for their profession. Many of them they're professionals. I mean, these are people who we trust our children with, but sometimes we don't listen to them when it comes to educational questions. I think there's lots of examples of that, and we can probably get into that. But how do we retain them? By respecting them, by paying them fairly, by listening to them. I'm rather amazed sometimes by some of the attitude toward teachers. I mean, I think that I have a huge amount of respect for teachers. I'm married to a teacher. I better respect teachers. I have some problems if I didn't. No, I do. I saw how hard she worked for the 30 years of teaching, and her friends. I know her friends, and they work hard. They're committed to our children, and I think we respect them by doing the best we can to support them, to listen to them. I mean, they're the experts. Our educational professionals are the experts. Sometimes when I will say one more thing on this. Sometimes when I see some of the reforms that happens in schools or suggestion, first of all, it's not usually made by educators, it's made by non-educators. But it's kind of like as if there was something going on, if the administration at the hospital decided that we're going to do a major improvement in quality of patient care, because we really think that's important. The patient care over here at the hospital is lacking. We're going to do something to improve their care. But we don't want your opinion, doctors and nurses, about how to do this. And that's a sense that teachers oftentimes have, is that they weren't, on these propositions that went down to defeat last fall. And other educational questions, they haven't always been considered. Does that mean that the teachers are always going to like my decisions, that I'm in their pocket? I don't think so. I'm not anybody's pocket. But they will always have my respect, and I will listen to them. And I think that's important. When you're an employee, you expect to be respected, and that carries a lot of weight.
Along that line of respect for teachers, do you think that their pay should be increased?
Another one of those questions. Do you think their pay should be increased? I think their pay should be fair and reasonable and both in the local community and in comparison to our surrounding states. Yes, I think so. That probably, I don't think the teachers have gotten much of an increase in the last 4 or 5 years, if any. So certainly I think that they're probably in generally not paid as well as they should be. But, it's a specific amount, they should go up this percentage, or should they be paid as well as somebody in Seattle? I don't know. But I think they should be paid. They are professionals, and we should pay professionals and treat them, pay professionals well and treat them well.
Well, since we have a limited amount of time, I'm going to ask Mr. Noel to ask a follow-up question that we're going to go on a different topic at this point. But
Idaho has adopted the Common Core curriculum. Do you think this will make a positive or negative impact on education, and why?
Well, Common Core has been kind of a hot issue lately, and it's my understanding, I attended the school board workshop last night, and there were a lot of good ideas discussed about Common Core. We need to stand back and take a look at Common Core. First of all, Common Core, it's my understanding, is that it was developed, it was not a federal government program, contrary to what's been put out there. It was developed by the states, by the governors, by the state superintendents. Mr. Luna and the State Board of Education and the legislature in Idaho, which is a fairly conservative group of people, have supported the Common Core. So I think that the Common Core I think that the guidelines are flexible. The Common Core, they don't demand that well, how it works is the state establishes standards, the school district establishes curriculum, and the teachers establish lesson plans. Okay, so the state has established these standards. From what I know of reading them, they look like pretty good standards, and in many ways better than Idaho standards. And teachers, from what I know, and generally are supportive to them, have been working for some time to try to adopt their curriculum and lesson plans to meet those needs. So I think in general, that's a good plan, and I think it's from what I've seen. I think one of the debates has been about data collection, right? That we're going to be giving all our data to the federal government. Well, what they spoke about last night, and I think it makes sense, is the data that's first of all, these were established again by the states. Any data that goes up is aggregate data. It is not data of individual students going to be going to Washington, D.C. To me, that in some ways it makes sense as long as this, confidentiality is protected. I mean, you have any kind of program, any kind of a standard, you want to measure it, right? You introduce, I don't care whether it's in business or whether it's in government, or whatever it is, you want to measure its effectiveness. Is this working, right? I mean, in my field, in mental health field, if there's going to be an introduction of a new medication, let's say to treat depression, or different kind of treatment technique for the people I work with, you want to measure effectiveness. Is it going to work? So I think that kind of data is going to be going up, through the State Department of Education. But that seems to be one of the concerns I've heard about. But as far as the standards to me look pretty good, and I think that if followed, they will be beneficial to the students.
I just want to be clear, because I think you let off the answer to the question that this is a controversial topic for a lot of people out there. It is your position that you're in favor of implementing the Common Core in the school district?
Yes, it is my position.
Mr. Hearn, how do you feel the emphasis on standardized testing has affected education?
Well, that's another interesting question. I mean, what has happened here, I mean, there's, in my opinion, you have to be accountable, right? If you teach something, there should be some way of measuring whether or not it's been taught, whether or not the students have learned it. So that's the purpose of testing, right? We all went through testing when we were in school. I think sometimes, though, I've been concerned about sometimes we are teaching our students to be good test takers. We are focusing so much on, can they pass this test? I know teachers, and I really object to some of the things that have happened where you've tied in, teacher pay to certain kinds of testing. I really question that. You see what happened in Boris School last year, and boy, talking about the generosity of Coeur d'Alene teachers. Boris School, as we all know, the teachers there were not given a raise because their scores didn't come up high enough, apparently, is what happened. And but teachers in other schools were, okay? Well, Bora happens to be, there's some economic problems in that area, and that school has a large amount of students that are on free and reduced lunches and breakfast. And so, so they didn't get a raise. And so out of the generosity of the teachers at Coeur d'Alene, they all dipped in their pocket and they went over to the teachers at Bora and gave them some money. And I thought that was just tremendous and showed the respect for their colleagues, and also them knowing the unfairness of tying in pay to those kinds of testing. So, we obviously have to be accountable. Testing is important, right? I mean, we all took testing in high school, college, whatever. I mean, you need to be able to show that you learned something. But we also have to balance that with not everybody's a good test taker, but that doesn't mean they don't learn well, There's been some remarkable things I've seen over at Sorensen School, for instance, of different kinds of learning, different kinds of program, in literature and arts and stuff that maybe are not easily measurable by test, but boy, those kids that's a dynamic school. That's the kind of stuff I'd like to see.
Mr. Hearn, you alluded to copiers being privatized or contracted out. This next question alludes to other services that might be privatized within the school district. And do you think that bus service and other services should be considered to be privatized?
Well, privatization is what you're talking about. My position about, okay, let's deal with the bus issue. There supposedly was a study done by CFO Mr. Wardell about money that could be saved by privatizing the buses. And, I looked at that, and to me that wasn't a study. In my work, I read research a lot. And that wasn't a study. What he did, and I'm not putting, Mr. Wardell's a nice guy. If he's here tonight, I'll shake his hand. He's a great guy. I'm not putting him down, but what apparently, from what I'm reading, is he called up a couple of private bus companies and said, hey, folks, can you do it cheaper? And they go, oh, yeah, of course we can do it cheaper. And that's the same kind of thing. I mean, I think if Ben Wolfinger called up some security companies and say, hey, can you run the jail cheaper? Oh, yeah, we can do it cheaper. But you need to look at the commitment of those people to the community. You need to look at safety issues. Are these bus drivers that would be hired as private people, would they be as safe and as committed to the community as the bus drivers we have now? Of course, I'm for saving money, and that I've said it before. I'm not saying that should be off the table, but I would take a lot more convincing that it's in the interest of the schools, it's in the interest of the children, it's in the interest of the families, for us to privatize the bus system. Many times these kinds of privatization schemes are a bait and switch kind of situation. Yeah, we can do it cheaper, and then 5 years down the road when they renegotiate, the price is back up again. One of the problems, if you get rid of the buses, if they go to private buses, they start selling off the buses, getting back those buses, if they decide to change their mind, is an incredibly expensive thing to do. So I remain to be convinced that privatization is the way to go. For financial reasons, I'm not convinced. I don't think it's necessarily for safety reasons of children, and that's our ultimate. I mean, we want to have committed and safe drivers. And these people have a tremendous safety record in Coeur d'Alene School District, tremendous safety record. And they're committed to the community. They know the parents. They know the children. And for us to say, oh, gee, we're going to save this much money. Look what happened it's been in the news lately. Look what happened in the prison system, right? Idaho decided to have a private prison, and then it's been in the news lately about all the problems that have occurred in that prison.
Mr. Hearn, sorry to cut you off, but I wanted to
follow
up on that. You talked a lot about buses. Are you against privatization as a principle that the school districts be looking at, or are you open to the idea of privatizing certain things, but maybe buses isn't one of them?
I'm open to the idea, but I am of privatization of whatever may need to be privatization. But I remain to be convinced. I'm going to be looking at that very hard if I was on the board and be very skeptical. You really better convince me that that's in the interest of the schools, the children, and that the saving of money is over long term, not a short term, gee, we can do it for cheaper now, but, what's it look like 5 years from now? So I'm not saying that privatization should be off the table. I've never said that. But I'm saying I'm going to be real questioning about that before I'd agree on something like that.
Thank you.
Mr. Hearn, in your opening statement, you mentioned you had worked under both Democrat and Republican. I think it was a board you were sitting on under either or. Do you believe that the position of trustee is nonpartisan? Yes or no?
Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes, it absolutely is nonpartisan and should remain nonpartisan.
Okay, so if you're elected, how would your political views affect your decision making?
Well, that's a good question. Of course, our political views. I mean, to me, if you look at our values, we bring our values into anything we do, right? So I certainly think my political views may carry some weight. My ethical and moral views, my religious views, but I would not be imposing them on the school board. I'm absolutely opposed. Or in the school district, I'm absolutely opposed to partisan politics. I think there's been a really nasty partisan politics that have taken place in this community, and I think we need to get away from that. I think it's on these nonpartisan boards, on the councils. I think that that's been a bad thing in this community. It's created a lot of tension. I mean, sometimes the tension I've seen in the community, when, as I'm running for the school board, sometimes I think, my gosh, am I running for Congress? I mean, the people get, I think, this is supposed to be a nonpartisan school board. We're supposed to be here focused on what is best for children. What is best, how can we help our educational professionals? What do we do for kids? We're not supposed to be focused on partisan political issues. I've been asked partisan questions in running for the school board. I refuse to answer them. I'm not going to answer them. If you want to ask me about Obamacare, I'm not going to answer the question. And if you want to ask me talk about education, I'll talk to you about it. But I think partisan politics has no place, and that's one of the problems, I think, that people perceive that this unelected board, 3 of the 5 positions are unelected, they're appointed positions. People perceive that there's a certain political bias on that board. And we'll know in 3 weeks from today whether or not would people agree with the direction the board is going or not. But I don't like the partisan politics, and I will not go on the board if I'm elected and be listening to one particular political party and trying to promote their agenda. We are here for all the people of the community. We are here to listen to everybody. We are not to come on nonpartisan boards with political agendas, and I feel pretty strongly about that. That's been a bad thing in this community.
Mr. Hearn, we have time for one more question, then we're going to go to your closing statement.
Okay.
Getting back to education, what are the 3 biggest challenges facing the school district, and what immediate steps would you like to see improvised if elected?
Well, 3 biggest challenges. Okay. Certainly, I've kind of addressed these a little bit. Obviously, one of the biggest problems has been been our funding levels, right? I think we can all agree, regardless of your political where you're coming from. Well, maybe not everybody, but I think most people can agree there's been some real problems with the funding. So, dealing with funding, how can I address that? Well, there's a limited amount I can do on that. First of all, I can't do anything unless I'm part of the majority of the board, okay? Let's be honest about that. I've been on boards, you have to be in the majority of the board to be able to do anything. Okay, but assuming I was in a position to do something, first of all, the funding is set from the legislative level, right? And then whatever the legislature doesn't fund is made up through levies or bonds, of course, for facilities. There's some federal money that goes to things like nutrition programs and for special education services. And then there's a little bit of grant money. Maybe some way of increasing the grant money, I don't know. So I'm not sure what I could do other than advocating for a higher level of funding and setting levies if I'm on the board at a rate which I think is a reasonable amount. Other areas of concern, of course.
Mr. Hearn, I hate to cut you off, but that's we need to keep moving on. I would like to get to your closing statement, and perhaps you can talk about some of the other 2 challenges that the school district faces and how you would solve those in your closing statement. You have 2 minutes.
Well, I guess I do want to. First of all, I want to thank you for you know, it's important that the core group and the CEP, which I know is neutral, does these kinds of things, because I know people are very concerned about the schools, and they should be. You know, and I also, you know, again, I want to say that I think I have the experience both professionally, business-wise, and on boards to be beneficial to the schools. You know, as far as you know, our focus, in my opinion, needs to be, our main focus needs to be on enhancing the educational experience of children. That needs to be our focus. And I will, all I can say is I will do all I can as a board member to work toward that. You know, I think that, again, I think that, you know, we value our children, we value our schools. You know, I'm grateful for the educational experience of my children in the Coeur d'Alene School District. I worry about, you know, my grandchildren, kind of if they're going to get the same level of educational experience that we've had. So I would do all I can to enhance, both in terms of programs, helping our educational professionals, funding levels, but also being responsible with the taxpayer's dollar. Like I said, I don't like paying taxes more than anybody else. I guess, you know, this, this is maybe off topic, but since this is my closing statement, I'll say this. I was, a while back, a few months ago, I went to see the movie Lincoln with my son, and I know I embarrassed him because I cried at the end of that movie. And he was going, "Phew, Dad," you know. But what touched me so much about that movie, I don't know if people have seen it, but what touched me was the statement at the end. At the end of the movie, there's Abraham Lincoln's second inaugural address. Remember the last scene, where he says, "With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wound, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations." And I guess I feel like we need that kind of sentiment toward binding the wounds in this community, toward our schools that have happened, the conflict, and we need to move on without malice to care for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move very quickly to the next set of candidates, one who is present here.
Adam's apple right there. God, that's kind of tight. Pardon? Oh.
We're going to have the opening statements now, and Ms. Seddon is not here this evening. So the way we're going to do this, she did submit a written statement, which will be read by a member of the core group. The opening statement will last about 1 minute, depending on how quickly and how efficiently our member of the group can read it. And the opening statement order was determined, but we're going to have Mr. Eubanks go first for the opening statement. He will go second for the closing statement. So, Mr. Eubanks, you have the floor for 1 minute.
Okay. Hey, my name is Dave Eubanks, and I'm running for the board position in zone number 4, a position currently held by board appointee Mrs. Ann Seddon. And I want to give you a little bit of an idea why I'm running here. As a veteran classroom teacher of 43 years, the last 15 of which have been at Lakes Middle School here in Coeur d'Alene. As a political independent, as a father of 10 children, 6 of whom have been educated in Coeur d'Alene schools, and 5 of whom are adoptive with Down syndrome. As a grandfather of 7, 3 of whom are currently enrolled in District 271. As the owner-operator of the Funny Farm Christmas trees in Coeur Gulch, and as a taxpayer who sees school taxes, levies, and bonds not as something inherently grotesquely evil, but as the single best investment we can make in our democracy and in our community's future, I'm running for this nonpartisan trustee position to help prepare our children to meet the challenges of the 21st century with confidence and success. I'm running for the trusteeship, to bring a measure of balance to our school board where currently there is none, where the attention of this board, including that of my opponent, seems heavily focused not on educating our kids, but on promoting a political agenda. And I'm running for the Coeur d'Alene School Board to improve the communication, the collaboration, and the trust among all our district stakeholders, our taxpayers to be sure, our students and parents, our great classified and certificated staff.
Mr. Eubanks, I'm very sorry to cut you off midstream there. That was a little bit more than your minute, so we're going to now go to the statement by Ms. Seddon. I'm sure you'll have an opportunity to talk about more of those items that you were headed into.
Shall I stay here or step aside?
You just stay right there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Coeur Group, for reading my statement. Thank you, audience, for listening. My name is Ann Seddon, and I am running for Coeur d'Alene Schools Trustee because I know I have been making a positive difference in my 10 months on the board. I have 30 years of teaching experience. Upon moving to Kootenai County 16 years ago, I ran a local tutoring service for 6 years. I am a continuing classroom volunteer. Bob and I have been married 43 years, and we have 2 children and 4 beautiful grandchildren. With all of the great things that Coeur d'Alene schools are doing, we have a problem with too many students not knowing their basics. This is reflected in 49% of our recent graduates needing math remediation at North Idaho College. Memorization of basic math facts is a woefully lacking skill. This has been shown in testing I helped initiate. Remediation has begun. I have worked towards solutions and not excuses. My name is Ann Seddon, and I am asking for your vote.
Thank you. We're going to now go to the questions. Mr. Miller.
Mr. Eubanks, you were leading towards this, so I'll let you continue. Why are you running?
Why am I running?
Why are you running?
I'm running to give every kid in this district, if I get the chance, the best possible education we can afford. I want to bring some balance to the board, and I also want to bring our community together. I was talking a minute ago about improving communication, improving collaboration, and improving trust in the district. And that's basically it. And I believe my 43 years experience in public education, and it's very wide and very deep, can be of great benefit to our board and great benefit to our school district and our children.
You've been involved in education a long time. Do you believe our schools are safe today?
Our schools in general, or right here in Coeur d'Alene?
Right here in Coeur d'Alene.
There's a lot of work that needs to be done. I wouldn't be telling you the truth if I didn't think that was the case. After what happened in Newtown, Sandy Hook in Newtown, with somebody shooting their way into the school, I'm not sure how you defend yourself against that entirely, unless you want to turn our schools into fortresses. So I think there's always going to be some measure of lacking there, but we do need to pick up the pace. I know that for a fact.
As a follow-up to that question, do you believe that teachers should be armed?
I know too many teachers to say yes to that one. Hey, Butch. I have seen some teachers get very angry at times. Sorry, Butch.
I don't really have a follow-up to that.
Okay. No, I think that's a very bad idea.
What other specific steps could you see the district take to make our schools more secure?
Well, it depends on the individual school. A lot of our buildings are very different from one another. And I think with the levy that just passed here on March 12th, a lot of what I have in mind is going to be addressed. I know it bothers me driving by Bryan Elementary School. In the office, the door is, 20 feet off the road right there. That's a bit of a concern. I've been the shop teacher at Lakes for the last 10 years. And the shop facility is tacked onto the back of the school. And you can't get from the shop into the main building without going outside, and vice versa. So those doors are left open or left unlocked all the time. It depends on the individual school. There's a lot of talk of building fences. I know that where I lived many years ago in Southern California, we had a gangbanger come into a high school English class, walked right up and shoot another boy in the head, and walked right out and drove away and was never caught. The response to that was our school district spent $1 million putting up a 10-foot-high wrought iron fence around the entire school, only 2 ways in and out, front and back, armed guards, metal detectors. And I mean, as a public high school, it was kind of sad. It was very sad to see that. But you've got to do what needs to be done to protect our kids. It's not a real easily resolved situation, but something does need to be done, to be sure.
Mr. Eubanks, according to CoeurSchools.org, the 2012-13 district budget is roughly $80 million. There's approximately 10,000 students, which works out to be about $8,000 per student. Is more money needed to effectively educate our children?
At this time, I don't think so. I think we can live within that budget, but we can't continue to keep cutting. With the cost of living going up, with the enrollment going up, and we already pay our teachers second lowest in the whole country. We're talking about cutting their benefits and doing some other things. We have to hold the line eventually on budget cuts. And I do think we can live within our means with $80 million. I should hope we could live within our means with $80 million.
So a follow-up to that, and you kind of answered already, but I'll give you another shot. Can we be more effective with our current dollars?
I'm sure there are many ways. I think that a lot of positions in the district could be consolidated. I'm probably not going to be too popular with the central office by saying this. I have felt in every school district I have worked in, and that's a few, there's way too much money being spent down at the central office. It has always bothered me greatly that, you've got a teacher coming in making $30,000 a year, and you've got someone in the central office making $125,000 who couldn't do the job of the $30,000 teacher. So I think we could save some money there.
Well, since you brought it up and you mentioned the central office, do you have any specifics in mind of what positions you would consolidate?
Well, I'm retired now. I'd be the superintendent for half of what is being paid. I mean, that's a nice start, isn't it? And that's nothing against our superintendent. I'm just saying that I think there's way too much money being spent down there.
Well, I didn't really address the consolidation of any positions, but I think you've kind of answered the question, and I don't know if you want to go any further.
Well, let's move on to something else.
We will do that.
Let's talk about curriculum. Idaho has adopted the Common Core curriculum. Do you think this will make a positive or negative impact on education, and why?
I think it'll be very positive because it raises the achievement bar. It causes kids to think more critically, to do some more problem solving than they're doing now. Right now, our kids are just shading in bubbles. And sometimes they just guess at those. Sometimes they just make little pictures with their bubbles, just kind of linking them together. I think it's time we did ask more of our kids. The rest of the world is moving forward. It's getting more and more competitive. And I don't remember who said it, but I think it was a president not long ago that the nation that out-educates us will out-compete us. We have to pick up our game. And the Common Core, I think, is a path toward doing that.
Okay. You mentioned in your opening statement, Mr. Eubanks, that you are a political independent.
Correct.
Do you believe that the position of trustee is nonpartisan? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
So if elected, how would your political views affect your decision-making?
If I were to be so fortunate, or maybe unfortunate, as to be elected to the board, and a couple of different ways to look at that. My passion is education. My passion is giving our kids, would be on the board to make sure our kids get the very best education. I'm not sure why politics would be a part of that. I don't think it has to be. I mean, we have people on our board who are talking about gun control, who are talking about abortion, and the other issues that have nothing to do with running our school district and giving our kids the best education.
Thank you.
He talked about having the kids do more critical thinking and not just filling in bubbles. How do you feel the emphasis on standardized testing has changed education?
Well, I think what's happened here in recent years, and I've been doing this a long time, 43 years is practically a lifetime for many people. We become so dependent on the results of standardized tests. I mean, it makes or breaks some teaching careers. It makes or breaks some districts. And yet, you can't just let everything depend on little Johnny having a good day and being favorable to taking or inclined to want to take a test today. Sometimes they're just having bad days. You have to take into consideration other things too, like transiency rates and absences. I mean, a kid who's here, 2 days out of 10, and then he has to take a state standardized test at the end of the year, he's going to reflect very poorly on that school, and I don't think that's fair. And I've taught at Lakes many years, and our transiency rate there, I think, is 18 or 20% from the time kids come into 6th grade till the time they leave. And, we get kids come in, they're there 10 days, and they have to take an ISAT test. Should that reflect on our abilities? I don't think so.
And when you say our abilities, are you referring to the district? Or
The teacher's abilities, sorry. I'm no longer a teacher, sorry. Actually, I will always be a teacher, and if I get on this board, I will continue to be a teacher, sorry.
Well, in 43 years, you must have quite a bit of experience dealing with those children that are only there on a part-time basis. And how would you propose, or how would you advocate, if you were on the Board of Trustees, a way to measure objectively student performance and therefore maybe tie that back to a teacher's performance?
Well, you have to include more than just standardized test results. You have to include observations of the teacher by professionals who know what they're looking for. You have to include, you have to give the kids an opportunity to maybe make presentations, maybe do projects, give them a variety of ways to demonstrate what they know.
And a follow-up to that, I guess, and I probably know the answer to the question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is it fair to tie a teacher's compensation to the performance of their students on standardized tests or any kind of test?
I don't know. This is a tough issue that we've been dealing with here in Idaho a long time, as you well know. I think what we need to do, instead of just pitting one teacher against another or one school against another, building some schools up with real nice fat merit pay and crushing others without any, like what happened here earlier. Why can't we just help out or improve the pay of all teachers and tie some strings to that? You will attend seminars on how to be a better teacher. You will go observe. We have 4 different kinds of teachers. This is what I've observed in my life. We have the amazing teachers at the top. And I don't know what the percentage is of amazing teachers in our school district, but it's a pretty hefty percentage. We have good teachers. And between amazing teachers and good teachers, they are most of the teachers that I have dealt with here in the Coeur d'Alene School District. Then we have some mediocre teachers who need a kick in the pants, who need a little more, maybe a lot more motivation to do a better job. And then we have incompetent teachers, and I have known a few of them in my life. I have not ever met one at Lakes Magnet Middle School, not one. I think what we need to do is to try to make our teachers more effective, do what we can to make them, bring our kids up to a higher standard. And as for incompetent teachers, I think we need to get rid of them as soon as possible. For one purpose, and that is, in my mind, is that it embarrasses all the rest of the teachers. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but there you go.
Well, I'm learning a lot.
And I'm not holding anything back. I'm speaking from the heart and speaking from a lot of experience.
Mr. Eubanks, what would you do to help keep as well as attract good teachers to the school district?
Well, I can tell you how you can drive them away. Oh, wait a minute, we're already seeing that, aren't we? Attracting good teachers to the district. You know, people don't go into teaching for the money. Have you heard that a million times? People do not go into teaching for the money, but people leave teaching for the money, especially men. You have to do more to keep them financially afloat. They have to be able to afford a house. They have to be able to afford a car and raise a family. You have to increase pay. If you want to attract good teachers, excellent teachers, those amazing ones I was just talking about, you have to pay them better. You have to give them reasonable benefits that are comparable to other states, other districts in other states as well. And I think you have to treat them with a lot more respect than they've been treated in our district in the last year or so. I know that in some places around our country, they're having special ceremonies during the school year honoring really amazing teachers or teachers who have really picked up their game, and they're giving them free passes to health clubs and just big, nice, fancy plaques and things. That doesn't really happen here. Teachers work their butts off, if I can be so bold, here in Coeur d'Alene, and it seems lately that all they get is contempt.
And as far as celebrating the teachers and the plaques and really making them feel respected, that's a function you feel that should be brought down through the board level.
Yes, I think it'd be great if we could start building our teachers up and recognizing the amazing ones. Cool. I've done this a long time, and I can tell you that many years ago, teaching in a junior high in California, it was routine business for kids to come into my class, and one or two of them were always complaining about old Mr. So-and-so, old Mrs. So-and-so, and they hate me and I hate them and whatever. In the last 10 years at Lakes Middle School, I have never heard anyone say that. But what I was hearing until the end, more and more is, man, that Mr. Whoever, that Mrs. Whatever, what an amazing teacher. I keep hearing this word amazing over and over. We are so blessed in Coeur d'Alene to have this teaching staff. I'm sure everybody here knows that in the last 12, 14 years or so, 7 of the state teachers of the year have come from this district. We have a top-notch teaching force here in this district, and we want to keep it.
You mentioned right at the beginning of the answer to that question that you're seeing, I don't know how you put it, but something about driving away teachers. Could you explain a little bit more about that? What do you see from the administration level, and what do you perceive to be the problems? And if you're on the Board of Trustees, what would you do to resolve those problems?
Well, driving away teachers. When you work so hard, and I think a lot of our community doesn't realize how hard teachers work. I had 160 kids a day before I had to resign in order to run for the board. I had 160 kids a day in the wood shop at Lakes and in my Spanish classes. 160 12, 13, and 14-year-olds, and every problem every one of them had ended up in my lap at some point in time. You have to wear a lot of hats to be a teacher in public school today. Kids are different from what they used to be, and I can attest to that personally because I've seen the changes. But I think when you work that hard and have that many responsibilities, and the slightest misspoken word, you have someone who's jumping all over you, or maybe threatening to sue you or get you fired or whatever. It's a pretty heavy load to bear. And when you think at the same time that the legislature down in Boise has no respect for anything we do, and that the school board in Coeur d'Alene has nothing but contempt for us, It's a bitter pill to take. I know personally that in the last month or two, there are teachers gathering in the halls here and there in our district talking about where they're going to go and are they even going to stay in Idaho if this continues. And you need to know that.
And I just want to follow up quickly because I think you've touched on it a number of times. The feelings, the contempt is what you just said. How do you change that if you're on the board? What are you going to do specifically to change that?
Well, the board needs to wake up and realize what treasures they have in our classrooms. It isn't just the students, it's the teachers as well. One thing I'd like to do is to start a program I would call Reality Check. And I would ask any teacher in the district, any grade level, if they would be willing to open their classroom for an hour or a half day or a whole day for any taxpayer in the district to come just sit down in the back, be a fly on the wall, and just observe. And I think if they would do that, that taxpayer would probably leave saying, I don't know how you do it. You are amazing. I could never do this job. I know because I've heard it many times, and there are teachers here who have heard that many times. I think if we had a reality check as to what our teachers are actually doing, I think everybody'd feel better about what's going on. But it does need to come down from the top.
Thank you.
I'm going to shift gears and talk about the parents. What expectations should we have for the parents, and do we ask enough of them?
Well, parents, first of all, and you know, parenting is difficult in this age, especially when there's only one. And not everybody has only one parent. But parents need to make sure their kids are coming to school regularly and they're coming to learn. And they're not coming to just text on their phone. They need to make sure their kids are coming to school with adequate nutrition, adequate sleep. They need to tell their kids when to go to bed at night, when to turn the TV off or whatever it is they're watching. Yeah, there are a lot of responsibilities for parents. They need to make sure the homework gets done. And if there's a problem between a student and a teacher, at least listen to the teacher first before you go hyperventilating and such. Listen to the teacher first. There's been a lot of hyperventilating in our schools for a long time now.
Mr. Eubanks, what is your position on the International Baccalaureate program, and should its elimination be reconsidered?
Boy, first of all, I think we've already crossed that bridge. And I know Mr. Hamilton at one of the board meetings said, we really shouldn't bring up IB and PYP anymore. They're just lightning rods, and we're not going to go anywhere bringing that stuff back up. And I agree with him to a large extent. I think we need to move forward. As I mentioned at the Micah Grains the other night, come July 1st, all of the materials and books and such for those two programs, I'll just lump them together here, either have to be shredded or sent back to the company or whatever it is that owned them. So in order to fire that IB program back up, it would cost a lot of money. And I believe that the IB program that was canceled was probably not very cost effective. And I know that there were very few kids in some of those classrooms, and I didn't disagree completely with the cancellation of that. PYP was a whole nother matter, but I do think we should move forward. And I say that because we have the Common Core coming, and I think the Common Core will do a lot to replace what PYP and the IB program were about without the fancy diploma. And I think in order to bring our community together, we need to put the lightning rods aside. And we need to put a lot of other things aside. I think some people in our community are ticked off about a lot of things on the left and on the right, and they've got things they can't get over. And I would ask that we all sit down and say to ourselves, what can we do to get around these issues that we can't get over? What can we do to get around them and get focused on just giving our kids the best education possible and move forward together as a unified community? Because we could really help our kids if all the stakeholders in this district stood together and supported public education.
Thank you.
Am I talking too much?
I haven't cut you off very much.
No.
Mr. Eubanks, I think I'm going to ask you to do just a quick answer. I know this is a big issue, but privatization has been a buzzword that's been going around. Do you think it's important for the board to look at privatizing certain things like bus service?
Well, we have had budget issues, and I don't have any problem with budget cuts that are recession-related. I'm not sure the budget issue we have right now is recession-related. I do believe that the board could have asked more on the M&O levy, but because they didn't, now apparently we're in the hole. I am also hearing from some people that that hole may be disappearing in time. So we may not actually end up in the whole 3 million or 5 million or whatever the number is they're talking about. I will tell you that when it comes to privatizing or contracting out our bus services, 30 years ago I worked in a school district where they did that. And as I said at the Micah Grains the other night, in that school district for the first 3 years it went great. They saved all kinds of money. And at the end of that first contract, everything went south. The price went up. The bus company refused to run certain routes. They just became very difficult to deal with, and the price, as I said, went way up. They ended up having to buy buses anew, having to hire drivers anew, and at the end of a 10-year period of time, they had spent twice as much on transportation as they would have had they never gone contract busing to begin with. So there's a big issue there, and I hope people are listening. I've seen this before, and it didn't work.
Thank you, Mr. Eubanks. We need to go to the closing statements now. And Ms. Seddon has a written statement that will be read, just like the opening statement. It should last approximately 2 minutes, and I hope it can start right about now.
Our Coeur d'Alene School District has many positives. We have generous patrons who support bond and levies. We send students to top colleges, and we just opened K-Tech for technical training. However, we need to be transparent when we fall short. I believe in solutions and not excuses. It is not acceptable to have 49% of our recent graduates attending North Idaho College needing math remediation and 39% needing English and reading remediation. These are facts I personally solicited from North Idaho College. Denial is not a solution. Too many graduates have been pushed along without being required to learn their basics. This is seen in the fact that math remediation at North Idaho College is largely on a junior high school level. This is seen in the fact that 50% of 5th grade students could not pass a math facts test designed for 4th grade skills. The local Marine stated that 1/4 of the local students could not pass the 10th grade level entrance exam. Having worked with too many students struggling in math, due to the lack of basic skills, I encouraged the administration to take action. Now all elementary schools are remediating. I promise to take the same proactive approach in all school matters, including bullying, teaching manners, preparing students to be job and/or college ready, and balancing our budget. I am a conservative, and because I feel in transparency, I chose to run as a Republican. I want voters to know who I am and what I believe. They deserve nothing less. Voters need more information on candidates, not less. Fresh ideas and solutions to problems are needed, and I bring solid ideas to the board. I bring the spirit and desire to build on our school's many successes, to work with fellow board members, teachers, and administration. I am dedicated to public education. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Ann Seddon, and I'm asking for your vote.
Mr. Eubanks, you have 2 minutes.
Boy, I wish I had time to respond to some of that, but I'm not going to.
You have 2 minutes.
All right. Hey, this election will be a game changer for our community. The winners will either be our kids or a political party. This election will almost certainly affect Coeur d'Alene for years to come. In choosing a school board trustee in a district this size, in this time and place, with 1,000 employees and over 10,000 children scattered through all the grades with so many diverse issues popping up almost daily, I think you would hope to find someone with a pretty deep and wide resume in public education. I believe I have that resume. In fact, I think you'll be hard-pressed to find a better one. And while I applaud Mrs. Seddon for her time on the board and for her efforts with little ones in Mesa, Arizona, some 20 years ago, I know that Mrs. Seddon taught kindergarten, first and third in Mesa, Arizona, between about 20 and 30 years ago, and I appreciate that. I applaud her for that. And I applaud her for her tutoring efforts with individual students through the years and for her work in daycare and nursery school. I think she comes up a bit short on the qualifications. I have 43 years. I have taught every grade level from kindergarten through 12th, with the exception of 4th grade. I've taught multiple subjects in the secondary school. I've taught U.S. and world history, language arts, geography, Spanish. I think it'd be good to have a Spanish speaker on the board, and industrial arts. I've coached basketball. I've been involved in a lot of community service projects and efforts, the Heart Association, the Cancer Association, the Cancer Society, the Relay for Life, where I helped kids raise $54,000 in pennies over a 2-year period of time. And we gave every penny to the Relay for Life and to the American Cancer Society. I've been involved in a lot of community projects. I've had about 15,000 kids in 43 years. And I think that I could bring a depth and a wisdom about public schools and teachers and kids that would greatly benefit our community. And I would hope that if you live in Zone 4 and if you're a registered voter on May 21st, you'll shade in the bubble for Dave Eubanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to transition now to the next two candidates for Zone 1.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're ready to get started. And Mr. Regan, I understand that you won the coin toss in the back. I would direct your attention, the timekeeper is to my left, your right. And he'll be raising the yellow and then the red. And I would ask that you would try to heed to his warning so I don't have to cut you off. Mr. Regan, you have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Well, thank you, Coeur Group, for having us, Mr. Knoll, Smith, and Miller, and for hosting this. Really appreciate it, and especially to all the people that are here tonight who came down to listen to a school board debate. My name is Brent Regan. I'm currently the trustee in Zone 1. I was appointed about 4 months ago. And a little bit about me, I was the first American in our family. I was born on the 4th of July to immigrant parents. I've since lived the American dream. I'm a businessman, inventor, entrepreneur, rancher, educator. I've been married 27 years. I have 3 children. They're now in their young 20s. I moved a family here to Zone 1 about 14 years ago and never looked back. We enjoy the area immensely. And I firmly believe that education is essential to freedom. It's the first step. There's a reason they didn't let the slaves have an education and learn how to read and write. And our Idaho Constitution, in fact, informs us, Article 9, Section 1, that education is critical to the stability of the republic. And if you think about it that way, then you know that we've all got skin in the education game. It's important to all of us. So thank you.
Ms. Hazel.
My name is Krista Hazel, and I'm running for school board. I have lived here most of my life. I've been a product of our Coeur d'Alene school system, and then I graduated at North Idaho College and the University of Idaho. I have a law degree from the University of Idaho. When I moved back home, it was because I had a job here locally, and I have been so fortunate and was so excited when I could return to my hometown to start my life. And is important to me to be able to give that ability, that choice to my children when they grow up, that there's economy here that will welcome them and that can help them flourish, that they will be college ready or workforce ready wherever they may choose as they get older. And we have a workforce and that will allow for them to come back to this area, and I can see I need to move on. I believe we need to take action steps to prepare our students for success in college and career. And we can do that by implementing our core standards and making sure that our district is prepared to implement for our students. I also think that we need to deal with bullying head-on by including parents early on. Thank you.
Krista Hazel, thank you for coming tonight. We'll start out with, why are you qualified for the position of trustee?
Certainly. First and foremost, I am a parent in the Coeur d'Alene school system. I have 2 children, ages 10 and 11, but that doesn't necessarily make me a good choice for trustee. So what I believe makes me a good choice are my qualifications. I have served on long-range planning for 4 years. That is a committee of roughly 30 people that work to study the programs in our schools and our facilities. And it was a 4-year appointment. One of those 4 years I served as a chairperson. And during my tenure, we were able to update our 10-year plan, bring it up to current standards, where we were then able to focus on the 5 schools that we identified as needing safety and security remediation. And we saw that in the August bond. In addition to that, I've served as an Excel board member, helping raise private dollars for our public schools of School District 271. And I've served 2 years with my Parent-Teacher Association. In addition to that, I have attended just about every board meeting in the last couple of years. Thank you.
Mr. Reagan, same question. Why are you qualified for the position of trustee?
Well, trustee, the board is very similar to the board of directors for a corporation in that you want to have individuals that have a broad and diverse experience base. It's good to have people that aren't all clones of one another so that you can go to them, the administration can go to them and ask them questions and get answers that are good answers from a variety of perspectives. Right now we've got a good board. We've got managers, we've got educators, we've got businessmen, and my role on the board right now is I'm the analyst and ideas guy. I have a long history in business. I know what our kids need to know when they come out of school in order to get a job because I've hired these people as they've come out of school. And I also have a unique perspective as I'm a futurist. I design and invent things that become future products. And in that, I have that particular perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just follow up on something you said. You talked about the board of directors of a corporation. Is the school district, should it be run like a corporation as much as possible?
Well, the mission statement of the school district is to educate. The trustees are entrusted with the education of the children. So in a corporate board, you're centered on profitability. That's your primary concern. So what we want to do is ensure that we're getting the best possible education while maintaining good stewardship of the taxpayer dollars. So it's the balance between those two things that we're focused on. So as a mission, that there's a difference between a corporate board and the school board, but from a functional standpoint, you still want diversity in the board.
Ms. Hazel, do you have anything to add to that comment? Or
I agree. We want diversity on the board.
I have to ask the audience to not applaud or make any noise during this. That was one of the conditions that the candidates agreed to when they came here. So if I could ask the audience to hold their applause until the very end, that'd be helpful.
Mr. Reagan, this question is for you first. According to cdaschools.org, the 2012-13 district budget is roughly $80 million. There are approximately 10,000 students, which means $8,000 per student. Is more money needed to effectively educate our children?
You know, there is really no good correlation between dollars spent and quality education. If dollars spent were the issue, then Washington, D.C., which spends approximately $28,000 per student, should be 4 times better. And they're not. They're actually at the bottom. And so it seems that as the Department of Education's budget increases, the results keep going down. So the problem isn't money. We've got 2 problems, and both of them are structural. One of them is attitude, frankly. We've had, in the past, a laissez-faire board that has rubber-stamped what the administration wanted and didn't take responsibility. And if you don't take responsibility at the board level, then the administration, why should they take responsibility? And then the teachers, why should they take responsibility? And finally, the students say, well, if nobody's taking responsibility, why should I? The culture of any organization starts at the top. And so if you've got leaders that are willing to grapple with the problems, take responsibility for the problems, and take charge of them and solve them, then the administration looks to that and they say, okay, we need to do this too. And pretty soon the teachers are saying that we need to do this too. And then the kids are saying we need to be responsible ourselves. So it's really a cultural thing and not a dollars and cents thing. Obviously, we need money for basic uses and operation, but there's no direct correlation between it. Thank you.
Ms. Hazel, same question. Approximately $80 million is in the budget. We have 10,000 students, which means $8,000 per student. Is more money the answer?
Efficiency is the answer with the money that we have. Of course, everybody would like to have more money, but the truth is you have to deal with what we currently have. You have to deal with the logistics of that. And I believe we need to be more responsive to the public. Whether you want to talk about the last board or the current board, my complaint has been they need to be more responsive to the public. We need to have a culture of service at our school district school board, where if the public has a complaint, if the public has a concern, you need to know that it's going to be, you need to rely on the fact that if you go forward with an issue, a concern, a question, that you will be responded to in a timely manner, that you will be addressed thoroughly. And when I look at leadership that we need leaders to serve. And a better service from the administration and from our school board is what I would hope to see. And I think that some of that could correlate into a better success on the school district level that would trickle down to our students. And if we can be more fiscally responsible with the amount of money that we do have, hopefully we can streamline where we're spending it and it can improve our students' education in the classroom.
Ms. Hazel, you mentioned efficiency within the school district and improving that to save some money. Is there a specific area that you had in mind where we could be more efficient and therefore save money?
Yes, I think that when we go to purchase buildings, we need to also make sure that we have a competitive process where we're looking for the best value for the dollar. There's times where I've not been clear as a member of the public that that's been done. Now, I think we need to make an effort as our school district, which is a public entity, to communicate when we have done those things. If they are being done, they need to be communicated, and if they aren't being done, they need to be followed through on. That would be one area that I could point out as an example. The others is, I think we need to take a hard look at every single line item in the budget, not just certain ones that fulfill a political agenda.
Mr. Regan, same question to you. Any areas that you see, maybe just one briefly that you see where we can add
First of all,
efficiency?
I'd like to address what Ms. Hazel said about the board not listening to the public and not having a degree of service. I've been on the board approximately 4 months now. One of the first things I did was went out and toured schools to see what kind of safety improvements could be enhanced, and I authored a white paper on school safety that we then used for determining the bond amount. We initiated school safety chats where we invited the public to come in and talk about what they wanted to see and what kind of safety improvements they wanted to have implemented. I went down to Boise to lobby to our legislators to get better funding and to get money restored that was removed from with Proposition 123. I actively campaigned for the M&O levy. I went out to a dozen different speaking engagements. I even went to the John Birch Society to convince them to pay more taxes. I was successful. We negotiated person and Bryan Field sales. I initiated, when I was chairman for one meeting, we initiated the Bullying Task Force, which is now a community program. We're getting input from all sectors. I initiated the investigation into core knowledge, which is different from Common Core. I also requested that the funds transferred. We had them in a statewide bank, requested that they be transferred to a local bank wherever possible. We brought $20 million into our local bank, and because of marginal banking, that turns into $200 million that can be loaned out to for the local economy. We're currently studying Common Core, and I'm on the negotiating team for the CE. Now, that's in 4 months, and that's on top of having a regular job. So I would argue that the board isn't busy with service.
Let's stick with that theme. Idaho has adopted the Common Core curriculum. Do you think this will make a positive or negative impact on education, and why?
Right now, just yesterday we had a Common Core workshop, and we had presentations from staff and Bob Quant, which is the state ISEE coordinator, come down and explain things. And frankly, after all that information, I had more questions than answers. And there are primarily two major concerns. One is that if you've got a broad standard, and everybody has to pass that standard, then we design the system to pass the standard. We design for the test. Okay? And if you design for the test, what happens if you want to exceed that? All the effort is making as many people as possible get to that standard. And so it can become a ceiling instead of a floor. And so that's the first concern. The second is that they've had this longitudinal data structure that's put in place to collect information about the students. And I received some information. There were 20 pages of lists of data that was being captured for the students. Some of it's pretty benign, grades, age, that sort of thing. But there's the ability in there to collect a lot of additional data. And so I asked the question, what kind of checks and balances are there? So once this infrastructure is in place, that we know that we aren't going to get a request from the federal government or the Department of Education to start getting other data. And is that the proper data that we should be releasing? And do we want to release it? And what are the privacy rights of our students and our patrons? And so protecting the privacy is important. We're in the information age right now. And information is the new capital. Information is power. So just handing over information to people that you may or may not want them to have is something that you have to consider carefully. So those are the two primary areas of concern. Thank you.
Ms. Hazel, same question as far as the Common Core curriculum. Do you think this will make a positive or negative impact to our students?
I believe overall it will be positive. I believe Common Core prepares our students to be college and career ready. I believe that Common Core or Idaho Core standards are state-led. The standards, I believe, are a floor, not a ceiling, that local districts can add to the standards if we choose to. In addition to that, the curriculum used to implement the core standards is chosen here locally. College and businesses have said that those who have succeeded under Common Core will be prepared for college and career. Now, Idaho universities have gone one step further to back that up. If you are an Idaho student, there is a commitment from our four-year institutions, LCSC, U of I, BSU, and ISU. And they have stated and provided in writing a memorandum of understanding that states, if you as an Idaho student are proficient under our new Idaho Core standards, you will not be required in college to enter into remedial courses. That means when you graduate high school and you are proficient in our Idaho core standards, you can immediately enroll in college credit-bearing classes. That saves time, that saves money, and I've heard so many complaints about our children are graduating successfully, but they need remediation. Idaho core standards can help that. Thank you.
And if I could expand on that a little bit.
Well, we're going to continue on, but I do have a follow-up. I just want to make sure I understand the two positions. Mr. Regan, you view Common Core as a ceiling to students. Is that?
No. I want to be sure it doesn't become a ceiling, and we've got to be careful that it does not become a ceiling. The other point I'd like to make is that it's been my experience that if you want to excel at something, the easiest way to do it is to work a little harder or to be a little better. So if 47 states have a standard here, why can't our standard be here?
But we can do that.
And that was my question to you, Ms. Hazel. Does Common Core, in your understanding, does it put that ceiling or that artificial?
It's not my understanding, it's the state's understanding, and they're very clear that Common Core is a floor, and then if the local districts on the local level decide for our local students that they need more, we can add more.
And is there anything at the district level that this Board of Trustees could do about Common Core at this point?
Right now, we're studying to figure out exactly what it is, exactly what it means, and what's going to happen. I know we have reassurances from various areas. Show me some data. Show me some studies. Show me the actual information that shows this is going to work. It's not something that we can take a cavalier approach to, and we want to be sure that it works and it's a good thing and that it advances education, advances our students.
And Ms. Halo, you mentioned some sources that you believe show that Common Core does work.
I believe it does. I believe that there is some data to back it up when it goes to the math standards in particular. The testing that will be done under the Smarter Balance test will be in line with our math initiatives that we've already had in place.
I think we're gonna move off Common Core onto another topic, so we have a limited amount of time. But James,
Ms. Hazel, do you believe the position of trustee is nonpartisan?
I believe it should be. But in all reality, I know that each of us bring to the table, whether it's partisanship, whether it's personal background, history, you carry that with you. And while some of us may choose to put labels on ourselves, when you are dealing as trustee, when you take your oath, and you are acting on behalf of the school district and all of those that it serves, that should not be partisan. And if we're acting that way, I would question, I just would question the motives behind that. I believe that education should not be politicized. And at the local level, we should all be in it together, working for a common goal, and that's getting our children to be successful for college and career readiness.
Mr. Regan, we're going to let you answer that question in just one second. I just want to ask really quickly, do you believe that the position of school board trustee has been politicized?
Yes.
Mr. Regan, you can address the question. If James needs to ask it again, he will.
Same question to you. Do you believe that the position of trustee is nonpartisan?
Well, yes, of course it's nonpartisan. I mean, you have the directive, you have the trust to ensure education. That isn't a Republican thing or a Democrat thing. I mean, I happen to be a Republican, and that informs people about my mindset. But if you want to be a Republican, all you got to do is go down and fill out a card, check a box, and sign your name, and you're a Republican. If you want to be a conservative, you just say, oh, I'm a conservative. Those are just labels. There's one thing that you have to prove, and that's success. And I've been successful. I know how to be successful. I've been successful for the last 32 years in business. I've been married for 27 years, raised 3 fine children. I know what success on that level is. And so far, I think I've been pretty successful on the board. So that's what I'm bringing to the table, success.
And just to follow up to that, for both of you, Mr. Reagan first, if elected, how will your political views affect your decision making?
Again, my political views are a result of my life experience. I didn't go down and say, well, gee, what's this Republican thing? Let me sign up to that. And I'll read their list of things that you are and adopt those things. That's not how it happened with me at all. My political affiliation is because, having learned the lessons of life and learned how to be successful and learned how to build businesses and hire people, you then look around and see, well, which of the parties best aligns with what I know to be true. And so, asking the question from the perspective of, are you going to be a Republican? No, that isn't it at all. It starts out that you're a person, you have certain life experiences, you happen to affiliate yourself with the Republican Party, and I also happen to be in, Society of Automotive Engineers and a whole slew of other things. So, no. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. How will your political views affect your decision-making if elected?
I don't know that they affect my decision-making. They might play a part in the sense that I'm fiscally conservative. I also, I'm a mom with 2 kids in the school system. So I want to know that from a taxpayer standpoint, we are utilizing our tax dollars wisely. But as a mom, I want to know that not only is our school system preparing my children, but they're also preparing my children's friends who may not have parents that are as actively involved in the schools like maybe I've been. And so from that standpoint, while I'm a member of a particular party, I'm a conservative, but there's so many other facets to my life, whether it's my education, my business experience, or my personal place. I bring all of those with me, and that's how I would view any decision that I would have before me.
Mr. Reagan, in your opinion, what are the 3 biggest challenges facing the school district?
Immediately, as in right today?
Yes, today.
Okay. I think the 3 biggest challenges would be our current financial shortfall, which we've got to deal with, labor negotiations with the union that are ongoing right now, and Common Core. I think those are the 3 major topics, and then there's a variety of subtopics. We've got the bullying task force going on. We've got core knowledge that we're looking at. We're trying to develop a system so that we can evaluate secondary programs, advanced programs, and bring them into the school without having the same problems that occurred with PYPIB. So.
Thank you. Ms. Hazel.
Yes.
What are the 3 biggest challenges that you see that are facing the school district right now?
I think not just right now, but for many years, one of our biggest challenges has been finances. In addition to that, Common Core is one of the biggest issues that's facing this election, because it's one of the biggest issues that has faced not only this district, but our state. And to this district specifically, I would say safety and security is also a huge issue, and that encompasses a lot. That encompasses the recent bond work that we have to make sure we get it done right the first time. We made a commitment to voters that it would be done, X amount of work would be done for Y amount of dollars. We have to maintain our integrity that we've worked to rebuild with this community on that levy. In addition to that, for safety and security, we need to address bullying head-on. We need to do that through our policy work, through culture in our school, and most importantly, by involving parents sooner. And that can be done in a variety of ways.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question. I may need the answers to be a little bit shorter than before.
Last question, Ms. Hazel, I'll start with you.
Is the teachers' union good for the students?
I believe they have moments where they can be, yes. They have the ability still currently to and I'll say the teachers' union, currently in negotiation, they have the ability to negotiate not just wages and benefits, but they have other factors that they too can still talk about, whether it's class sizes, whether it's safety in our buildings. So yes, in addition to that, in addition to taking care of wages and benefits, there are other things that our teachers union can and does speak up for. And for that, as a parent, I'm grateful.
Mr. Reagan, same question.
Are teachers' unions good for the students?
For the students.
If you ask the teachers' union, they'll say they are. My experience on this is that your most precious capital in any venture, any organization, are the people that work for you, the human capital, because all prosperity is the product of work and effort by people. And so what I find unfortunate with the teachers' union is that they have an attitude that it's an adversarial relationship. And in all my years, and in all the people I've hired, and all the people that have worked for me, I've never viewed it as an adversarial relationship. I've always viewed it as a partnership. I've always viewed it as the business and the employee go down together, down the path towards prosperity. And fair wages and good treatment and respect are all part of that. And so for me, it's a bit of a culture shock in dealing with the union. But we're in the middle of negotiations right now, and hopefully we'll be able to come to a mutually agreeable resolution in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the question and answer session, and we're going to move to the closing statement. And since Mr. Regan got to go first on the opening statement, Ms. Hazel, you get to go first on the closing statement. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. While I hold many personal opinions, my sole focus is education and our students. We must demand excellence in education and expect our district to be prepared to implement Common Core standards, and we expect our children to be safe and secure. And we must demand our district fiscally manage our tax dollars wisely while providing the best level of education that attracts a strong economy and gets our kids life ready. Mr. Reagan tonight talked about proven success. I'd like to offer some of my proven success. As a volunteer in this school district, I have been able to help a committee bring up to date a 10-year plan and identify schools that needed help, and then in addition to that, act on it. I have been happy and proud to be a member of the Yes for Schools campaign in the last 2 successful levies. In addition to that, I've been proud to be a part of I've been proud to raise private dollars for our public schools through my PTA and through Excel Foundation. I will continue service. And when I talk about service and leadership of service, what I mean is you need to be responsive to the public you serve, regardless of the points of view that come before you. And with that, I will be, whether I hold your opinion and agree with it or I don't. What I will do is always be responsive, always take your views into an account, and make decisions that I feel are best for the district and for our students, regardless of political agenda. And thank you very much. And if anybody has any more questions or would like to contact me personally, you can do so by going to my website, www.votekrista.com. Thanks.
Mr. Regan, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. When I was originally approached to consider this job as a board member, as a trustee, my first reaction was I didn't want to do it. You think about it. There's no pay, there's no benefits, there's a lot of hours involved, and sooner or later, pretty much everybody doesn't like you. I mean, what's not to love, right? But I was sitting there thinking about it. My youngest son, out of the blue, we hadn't talked about this. He says to me, "Dad, we got to get a handle on education. It's the future." And it really is. It is the future. And I spoke at the EduFest 2013, and we were talking about innovation, and we're talking about the future, and how to bring that kind of innovation forward. And teachers asked me, they said, how do we get more creativity and innovation out of our kids? And I told them, you got to stop beating it out of them. We've got a school system that wants to push people into conformity. And we have to give them the basics. We have to give them the raw material that they need. But we also have to allow them to grow. And there's a brief story about this. There's a little girl, Amy, she's drawing a picture. And the teacher comes over and says, "What are you drawing, Amy?" And Amy says, "I'm drawing a picture of God." And the teacher says, "Well, Amy, nobody knows what God looks like." And Amy says, "Well, they will in a minute." And that kind of refreshing understanding is something that we've got to be able to preserve. You know, back when I was a child, there was the moon landing. We went to the moon. Did you know that nobody over 35 years, or nobody born after 1935 has stepped on the moon? And so I look at that now. Where is our inspiration? Where is our future for the kids? What can they look to and see that? And, you know, we have No Child Left Behind and Race to the Top. What happens when you combine those two strategies? No Child Left Behind and Race to the Top. You walk at a slow pace of the slowest person. I want every child to be able to go as far and as fast as they can. You know, I want to be able to inspire them. I want them to see that future. I want them to see those dreams. Our motto shouldn't be "No Child Left Behind." It should be "Ad Astra," to the stars. Reach. Dream big. I want them to dream big, because you never achieve more than you dream. So dream big. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fortunate to have such sincere and professional candidates participate in this vigorous dialogue about education and the future of our public schools. My name is Jason Wing, and I'm the Vice President of the Coeur d'Alene Education Partnership. We want to first thank and commend the Coeur Group for yet again another wonderful job moderating a candidate forum here in Coeur d'Alene. Their thorough research and their thoughtful questions are always appreciated. We also want to thank Javan Sherman for providing the refreshments and back, and for Bunkhouse Media for production and taping of tonight's forum, which will air on Channel 19. Finally, and most importantly, we want to thank the school board trustee candidates who took the time out of their busy schedules tonight to participate in tonight's forum. Their time, preparation, and sincere comments will surely prove valuable in helping us all make the best decision possible for our school board, our district, and for our children. We encourage all voters to know their trustee zones. I encourage everyone here to reference the maps at the back before they leave tonight. Or you can also visit our website, cdaep.org, for resources for the candidate maps and other valuable resources. Please vote, most importantly, on May 21st, or vote by absentee. Lastly, we challenge parents, community members, and business leaders to remain engaged in this important public education dialogue and support informative community events like this by becoming a member of the Coeur d'Alene Education Partnership. Thank you for attending. Thank the candidates for participating, and have a good night.